Welcome to Mind Minutes. Ever feel like you're dating the same person over and over again, even though they look different?
Haha, yeah. Like a romantic Groundhog Day? It's a common feeling, right? Like my friend who keeps falling for women who live in their own little worlds.
Exactly. And it turns out there's some actual science behind this. There was this 8-year study where researchers tracked people's partners. They found that a person's different partners often had strikingly similar personalities. Wild, isn't it?
So it's not just anecdotal, we actually gravitate towards certain types?
Apparently so. It's like we have this internal template for our ideal partner, even if we're not consciously aware of it. That's why we talk about types, right?
Makes sense. But what about people who date all sorts of different personalities?
Right. The study found an exception. People with high openness, those who love new experiences, basically tended to have more diverse partners. They're not as locked into a single type. Hmm.
Oh, that's fascinating. So like adventurous souls attract other adventurous souls or maybe they're just open to everyone?
Exactly. Now, why we choose those similar partners? Several theories are at play here.
Yeah? Hit me with them.
Well, for one, the environments we choose. A sporty person might meet someone at the gym, an artist at a gallery. And those shared environments often mean shared personality traits.
Right, birds of a feather.
Then there's the flip side. Our own traits attract certain people. If you're easygoing, you might attract someone more controlling because it works for them.
Oh, wow. I hadn't thought of it that way.
And let's not forget our past experiences. Think first loves, early relationships. We kind of link certain traits with how we felt then, and we subconsciously seek those traits out later.
So, like, if your first love had a quirky laugh, you might be drawn to other quirky laughers?
Precisely. It's a kind of conditioning. And then there's family dynamics, particularly the relationship with our opposite sex parent. It can shape our expectations and choices in partners.
Wow. So, dad issues are real?
Well, let's say parental influence is definitely a factor, but it's important to note that we are talking about positive influences as well.
Got it. It's not all bad news. So, what if someone wants to break this cycle of dating the same type?
The article suggests some good steps, like examining past relationships, figuring out your needs, and this is key change in your current life. If you want to meet different people, you got to shake things up.
Right. Step outside your comfort zone.
And be wary of love at first sight. It can be fueled by projections and unmet needs, not necessarily a genuine connection.
So, take your time, get to know the person, right?
So it's not just where we go, but who we are that draws in certain types, right? Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we're talking about two sides of the same coin here. The article mentions how our personalities influence the environments we choose.
Totally. A sporty person's more likely to meet someone at the gym, right? An artist at a gallery opening. And naturally, those shared spaces usually mean shared interests, shared values, shared personality traits.
Makes total sense. Birds of a feather and all that.
But what I found even more interesting was the idea that we ourselves, just by being us, attract specific types of people too.
Oh? Like how?
Well, the example they gave was someone who's really easygoing, maybe doesn't have super strong opinions, goes with the flow. They might attract someone who's, well, a bit more controlling.
Because it works for them, the controller, I mean. Right, they can kind of steer the ship, so to speak.
Precisely. It fulfills a need for them. And we all have needs, whether they're conscious or not. The article also suggests that people who get into lots of, shall we say, dramatic relationships might actually be drawn to the excitement, even the chaos, because it fills some kind of void.
That's deep. So, like, they're almost addicted to the drama? They need that intensity?
It's a possibility, sure. They mentioned Carrie Bradshaw from Sex and the City as an example, always coming back to Mr. Big, even though he's, well, a whole emotional roller coaster. It's like, maybe she needed that back and forth, that constant push and pull.
I see. Wow, I hadn't considered that angle before. So, are we saying that we're not always choosing these types, but they're choosing us?
It's funny how we sometimes feel the spark with someone, right? Like instant chemistry. But what if it's not so instant after all?
Yeah? What do you mean?
Well, there's this idea that our early experiences, especially first love or even our first sexual partner, can kind of program us in a way.
Program us? Like how?
Like we associate certain traits or behaviors with the intense feelings we had back then. So later on, when we encounter someone with similar traits, those old feelings get reactivated.
Oh, interesting. So it's not the new person, but the memory of the old one?
Exactly. They did this study with mice, believe it or not, where they paired a scent with a sexual reward. And guess what? The male mice started preferring the scented females, even though the scent itself had nothing to do with, attraction initially. It was purely conditioned.
Wow. So, like, if your first love had a certain laugh, you might be drawn to other people with similar laughs?
Precisely. Or a specific gesture, a way of speaking, whatever. We subconsciously link those things with those early intense feelings. And then, bam, we feel that spark again, even if the new person is totally different in other ways.
That's kind of a mind blowing. So, we're not really falling for the person in front of us, but for a ghost of someone from our past?
So we were talking about how we tend to date the same type over and over again. But what about the influence of family, especially parents?
Yeah. The article touches on that, right? Something about our relationship with our opposite sex parent shaping our expectations?
Exactly. It focuses on fathers and daughters specifically. Apparently, there's research showing a link between a woman's father and the partner she chooses.
Oh, really? Like, how so?
Well, get this. The study found that daughters' partners often have similar facial features to their fathers. Isn't that wild?
Whoa. So, like, they're literally attracted to faces that look like dad?
It seems that way, and it goes deeper than just looks. Women who reported having a positive relationship with their fathers were even more likely to choose partners who resembled them, personality-wise too.
That's fascinating. So, it's not just physical, but also about emotional connection?
Yeah, exactly. The theory is that if a woman had a good relationship with her dad, she might subconsciously seek out those same qualities in a partner, hoping to recreate that sense of security, maybe? Love? Those positive feelings?
Right, right. So, a happy childhood could lead to seeking out familiar comfort in adult relationships.
Precisely. But on the flip side, the article also suggests that women who actively avoid partners similar to their fathers might have had less positive experiences. Maybe they felt unsupported or, didn't get the emotional connection they needed.
That makes sense. It's like they're trying to break free from that pattern, right? Avoid repeating a potentially negative dynamic.
Exactly. Though the article stresses that it's rarely just one thing. It's probably a mix of factors: environment, personality, past experiences, and family dynamics that contribute to our partner preferences.
Right, a cocktail of influences. So, what if someone's stuck in a cycle of unhealthy relationships? Can they break free from this attraction to the familiar?
Well, the article offers some advice. It suggests examining past relationships, understanding your needs, and importantly, changing your current life.
So, like shaking things up, stepping outside your comfort zone?
Totally. If you keep doing the same things, you'll keep meeting the same kinds of people. And this part one found really interesting. They talk about compulsive repetition.
Compulsive repetition? What's that?
It's this idea that we sometimes recreate past experiences, whether positive or negative, in an attempt to, like, resolve them or something, even if those experiences were painful.
Oh, wow. So, it's like we're drawn to the familiar even if it hurts?
Yeah, like someone who's been in a lot of dramatic, tumultuous relationships might subconsciously crave that intensity, that chaos, even though it ultimately leads to heartbreak. They're almost addicted to the drama.
That's heavy. So, how do you break that cycle?
Well, the article suggests a few things. Self-reflection is key. Understanding why you're drawn to certain types, what needs you're trying to fulfill, and then making conscious changes to break those patterns. Like if you always meet partners at bars, maybe try joining a hiking club or volunteering somewhere new.
So, change your environment, change your interactions. Got it. Anything else?
So we were talking about how we tend to date the same type over and over again, but how do we actually break that cycle? The article had some interesting advice.
Yeah? Like what? Give it to me straight.
Well, first, it's all about self-reflection, really examining past relationships, not just the romantic ones either, looking for patterns, similarities, the common threads.
So, like, make a list of everyone you've dated and see what traits pop up, kind of like a dating autopsy?
Huh, exactly. But it's not just about identifying the similarities, it's about figuring out which of those traits caused you pain, which one you'd like to avoid in the future.
Right, right. So, like, if every partner you've had has been super controlling, that's a red flag, obviously.
Precisely. It's about recognizing those patterns and understanding why they keep repeating. The article calls it compulsive repetition.
Compulsive repetition? That sounds intense.
It is. It's this idea that we sometimes recreate past experiences, even negative ones, almost like we're trying to fix them or something.
So, even if it hurts, we're drawn to the familiar? That's deep.
Yeah. And once you've identified those patterns, the next step is figuring out what you really need in a relationship. What are those core needs that you're trying to fulfill?
Okay, so identify the patterns, then figure out your needs. Got
But
it.
here's the kicker. Try to meet those needs yourself first. The article makes this point that we often become fixated on people who we think can provide what we're missing.
Right, like if you crave security, you might be drawn to someone who seems super stable, even if they're actually, kind of controlling.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that need and trying to address it on your own. Because let's be honest, relying on someone else to complete you is rarely a healthy long-term strategy.
So work on yourself first, then look for a partner. Makes sense.
And finally, this is key: change your life, your routine, your environment, your habits. If you keep doing the same things, you'll keep meeting the same kinds of people.
So if I keep meeting artsy types at gallery openings, maybe I should try joining a hiking club or something?
Precisely. Shake things up. Step outside your comfort zone. It's not about changing who you are, but expanding your horizons, meeting different people, experiencing new things.
Got it. So self-reflection, understand your needs, and shake up your life. Sounds like a solid plan.
So we were talking about how we tend to date the same type over and over again. But what about love at first sight? Isn't that different?
Yeah, good point. Doesn't that imply something unique, like a true connection that defies the type theory?
Well, this article suggests love at first sight can be a bit of a trap, actually. It can be fueled by projections and unmet needs, not necessarily a genuine connection.
Oh, so like you're projecting your ideal partner onto this new person without really knowing them?
Exactly. It mentions this idea of narcissism playing a role, like we see the other person as some idealized version of ourselves or as fulfilling some deep-seated need, and bam, instant love.
Wow. So it's not really about the other person at all, more about ties?
It can be, yeah. The article quotes intimate relationships, saying something like, people seem to marry a fantasy. They fall in love with someone else but convince themselves it's their partner. It's like we create this image of a soulmate and project it onto someone who might not actually fit that image at all. Once the fantasy fades, the love often fades with it.
That's kind of sad. So how do you know if it's real love then, or just a projection?
Well, time and genuine connection are key, right? Getting to know the person, seeing them for who they truly are, flaws and all. The initial spark is exciting, sure, but real love is built on something much deeper, something more sustainable.
Right, right. So love at first sight might just be infatuation at first sight then?
Maybe. The article also suggests that's why we often experience love at first sight with, well, the same type of person over and over again. We're projecting the same fantasy, the same unmet needs onto different people who superficially resemble our ideal.
That makes a lot of sense. So what's the takeaway here? Avoid love at first sight altogether?
Not necessarily, just be aware of the potential pitfalls. Don't rush into anything. Take your time. Get to know the person beyond that initial spark. See if the connection deepens, if it evolves into something real. Because true love isn't about projections or fantasies, it's about accepting someone for who they truly are. Hmm.
That's great advice. So recognizing these patterns, understanding our needs, and being mindful of projections can help us break free from the cycle of dating the same type and maybe even lead us to a more fulfilling, lasting love.
So we were talking about how we tend to date the same type over and over again. But what if it's not just our choices, but also theirs? Like, what if they're choosing us based on our personalities?
Yeah? I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, the article mentions this fascinating study, a huge one, actually, that looked at people's partners over 8 years. And guess what? They found that people's different partners often had strikingly similar personalities, even when those partners rated themselves.
Whoa. So it's not just one person's perception, it's like objectively these partners were similar?
Exactly. It's like we're all emitting these signals, these vibes that attract certain types of people, and they're picking up on those signals, whether consciously or not.
So it's a two-way street. We're drawn to them and they're drawn to us based on these personality vibes.
Precisely. It's kind of mind-blowing, right? Like, we think we're making these independent choices, but maybe there's a whole other layer of attraction happening beneath the surface.
Definitely makes you think. So what kind of signals are we talking about here? Like what draws certain people to us?
Well, they didn't get into specifics in this article, but I'm guessing it's a complex mix of things. Everything from body language and communication style to, how we present ourselves to the world. Even our scent might play a role. Who knows?
Wow. It's like a whole secret language of attraction we're not even aware of.
Totally. And remember how we talked about how our early experiences can shape our preferences, like first loves and all that? Well, what if those early experiences also shape the signals we send out, making us attractive to certain types?
Oh, interesting. So it's like a feedback loop? Our past experiences shape our preferences and the kind of partners we attract?
Exactly. It's all interconnected. It's like this big, complex dance of attraction, and we're all just trying to figure out the steps. Hmm.
I love that analogy, the dance of attraction. So if someone's stuck in a cycle of attracting the wrong type, maybe they need to change their dance moves, so to speak?
Ha! I like that. Yeah, maybe it's about becoming more aware of the signals you're sending out and then making conscious changes to attract the kind of partner you really want.
Makes total sense. So it's not just about choosing the right person, but also about becoming the right person to attract them, right?
So, we've been talking about how we often end up dating the same type, but isn't love at first sight supposed to be different? Like a magical exception?
Yeah, isn't it supposed to be about this like instant, undeniable connection? Something that transcends our usual type?
Well, this research from the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships suggests it might not be so simple. Apparently, love at first sight can actually be a trap, often fueled by projections and unmet needs, not necessarily a genuine connection.
Oh, really? So you're saying it's not about the other person, but more about us?
It can be, yeah. We project our ideal partner onto this new person, filling in the blanks with our own fantasies and desires. It's like we create this image of a soulmate, and then, bam, we think we found them, even though we barely know them.
That's a bit disillusioning. So is love at first sight always a bad thing then?
Not necessarily. The initial spark can be exciting, and it can definitely be a catalyst for something real. But it's important to be aware of the potential pitfalls, to recognize that it might be more about our projections than about the actual person.
So how do we know if it's real then? Or just a projection?
Well, time and genuine connection are key. Getting to know the person, flaws and all. Seeing if that initial spark can evolve into something deeper, something more sustainable. Because real love isn't about projections or fantasies, it's about accepting someone for who they truly are. Hmm.
That makes sense. So take your time, get to know the person, and see if that initial spark turns into a real flame. Great advice. Thanks for sharing these insights. And to all our listeners, thanks for tuning in to Mind Minutes. We'll see you next time for more explorations of the mind. And from me personally, a big thank you for joining us on this journey of self discovery. Stay curious, stay mindful, and keep exploring those fascinating mind minutes.